does it go from broccoli with cheese to broccoli cheese soup? Throughout all of time, man has dared to dream big. From the greats like Plato, Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, Marie Curie, and Einstein, mankind has given birth to countless brilliant minds. Within those minds there is a never-ending onslaught of information, every bit of which influences each individual's behavior and determines their future thoughts and actions. Still unrivaled by nearly any machine, the brain continues to be a topic of fascination for scientists and curious minds alike. The brain has given us the ability to take hold of our surroundings and mold it into a world that better suits our needs. In doing this we have learned many skills, from metalworking, to philosophy, to cooking. However, despite the vast quantities of human knowledge, that of which is unrivaled by any other species in history, it seems we have left a gigantic gap in our understanding, and it hasn't gone unnoticed. May I be so bold as to pose the question, is there a distinct difference between broccoli and cheese, the dish well loved and respected by many for its ease of production and balance of nutritional value and taste, and broccoli cheese soup, one of the most popular soups in America and universally loved throughout the year by countless fans? Because in having two different names, it seems there should be some distinction. But are they both not just broccoli with cheese on them? The most obvious answer would be it depends on how much cheese you put on the broccoli. Put a bit of cheese on the broccoli, you got broccoli with cheese. Put more cheese than broccoli, you got broccoli cheese soup. But what about individuals who enjoy a lot of cheese on their broccoli with cheese? Does that mean they are eating broccoli cheese soup, or is broccoli cheese soup just broccoli with cheese for cheese lovers? If there is a difference, then at what exact point does it go from broccoli with cheese to broccoli cheese soup? These are the big questions that we as a species have neglected for an untold number of years, but today I'd like to attempt to be one of the groundbreaking pioneers who dares to think big. Stay tuned, because what we find out later on here today is earth-shattering. In ancient Greece, philosophers would gather in town squares and discuss their ideas and pose their biggest questions in search of answers. One of such questions was that of Theseus' ship. The story goes as follows: a man named Theseus goes on many excursions in his beloved ship. However, like with anything, his boat starts to get a little worse for wear, so he decides to make some repairs. It floats and it sails, so as far as he is concerned he is good to go, and as he continues his travels he continues to incur damages to his ship and continues to make repairs accordingly. However, upon returning home and checking his ship log where he kept track of all of his repairs, Theseus notices something. Over the course of his journey, Theseus replaced every single part on his ship. What a crazy coincidence! However, this posed a big question in Theseus' mind. If he replaced every single part, was it still the same ship? If it wasn't, at what point did it become a different ship? Was it once the last new part was changed, or was it even sooner when the majority of parts were replaced, or was it only a different ship if he changed the name? So many questions, and yet still to this day the answers to such questions are hotly debated by the average Joe and scholar alike. As an average Joe with no prior knowledge on this topic, I think I am more than qualified enough to speak on this cheesy question. Much like how Theseus started out with his original ship, we start ourselves with our average serving of broccoli with cheese. If broccoli with cheese and broccoli and cheese soup are essentially the same thing, just with different names and slightly different cheese quantities, then when does it go from broccoli with cheese to broccoli cheese soup? Is it when there is more cheese with broccoli? Is it if the broccoli is fully submerged with cheese? Or is it based on how much you prefer cheese? After all, some people like to blanket their broccoli with cheese with as much liquid cheddar as they can get their hands on. So then does that mean the difference between broccoli with cheese and broccoli cheese soup is subjective and just a construct we gaslighted ourselves into believing in? Was it all just broccoli and cheese this whole time? Today I'd like to find out. The first place I think we should look is on Google. After all, like many other things, Google is where a lot of people get their recipes from, so if we are lucky maybe there will be a clear correlation between the amount of cheese used and what name the dish was given. So without further ado, I present the broccoli cheese paradox. According to dinneratthezoo.com. For your typical broccoli with cheese dish you can expect to be using about 6 ounces of shredded cheddar. That is a fair amount of cheese to say the least, but let's not take one website's word for it. Let's take a look at another credible source. According to allrecipes.com, you can expect to use about 1.5 cups of shredded cheddar in your dish. That's 12 ounces of cheese, more than double that of the previous recipe. That means it is perfectly possible the recipe author at dinneratthezoo.com may call this recipe with broccoli cheese soup in comparison. At this point we are getting more questions than answers, so to simplify I decided to take the top 10 Google results for broccoli with cheese recipes and average out the amount of ounces of cheese in your typical broccoli with cheese dish so that we can compare it to broccoli cheese soup later on. As you can see in this spreadsheet I have taken each of the top 10 search results from Googling the words broccoli with cheese. Combined, it looks like your average broccoli with cheese fan is gonna be set back about 10.6 ounces of cheese for each dish. That's quite a bit of cheese. According to culturecheesemag.com, the average serving of cheese for any given person is 1.5 ounce, meaning you're getting over 7x your average serving of cheese with the average broccoli cheese dish. That means you're absolutely drowning your broccoli in cheese. But is it enough to call it a soup? Let us look at some of the broccoli cheese soup recipes Google has to offer to see if we can get any insight into how much cheese constitutes a soup. Well, that's funny. The first recipe Google shows only calls for 8 ounces of cheese. That's 3.6 ounces of cheese less than our broccoli with cheese. The next recipe on Google looks a little bit more like what you'd expect, though, with the recipe on allrecipes.com requiring 16 ounces of cheese. Like last time, using the first 10 websites shown on Google, we will take the ounces of cheese from each recipe and calculate the average amount of cheese in your average broccoli cheese soup. The answer is 11.8 ounces, only 1.2 ounces more than the average amount of cheese in broccoli with cheese. So are they the same thing? Or is one of them an imposter? According to Google, the definition of soup is a liquid dish, typically made by boiling meat, fish, or vegetables, etc., in stock or water. That is interesting and all, but I'm pretty sure we all knew the whole soup was a liquid part. What I'm more interested in is that second definition, a substance or mixture perceived to resemble soup in appearance or consistency. Now that's strange. So to be a soup, all that is required is for something to take on the resemblance of a soup. And since we know soup typically contains solids, we can easily say broccoli is one of those solids. So all it needs to do to be broccoli cheese soup instead of broccoli with cheese is give off the appearance of the broccoli being submerged in cheese, regardless of whether or not it is actually submerged. But depending on the size and shape of your container you're eating out of, this could require various amounts of cheese. A small amount of cheese might make it look like the broccoli is swimming in one container, while a larger amount of cheese might not even reach every piece of broccoli in a much larger container. So depending on the size and shape of your container, the amount of cheese required for a dish to be considered broccoli cheese soup varies. With these, ladies and gentlemen, we have our final answer. The line between broccoli with cheese and broccoli cheese soup is determined not by the actual amount of cheese in the dish, but by the container the dish is served in. I will provide no further comments. Thank you for your time and have a good rest of your day.